We are live. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Talk About It Tuesday. I'm coming to you from Pure Pro Shop here in Ephrata, Pennsylvania, and couldn't be more excited to introduce our guest for this week, which is three-time PBA titleist and Brunswick Pro staffer Jason Sterner. Jason, how you doing tonight?
Awesome, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a. I know you have a very busy schedule, talking to us from probably a hotel room for some of the travels tonight, but taking some time out here after a couple days of bowling and popping by to talk about the Brunswick Melee Jab Blood Red.
Yes, sir.
So, just like anything else, we always love to go over for the techie guys and gals out there. We get over the specifics about the ball and what the shelf talkers say first, and then we get into the meats and bones and talk about how does this thing actually roll. That's the most important part. So
that's what we want to know.
The tech savvy individuals out there. So the thing about this ball here with the Blood Red is this is a direct release or a re-release, if you will, of the popular Melee Jab SE, which was the special edition purple ball that was only available through distributors based on the pro shops essentially buying at a certain level. They got the ball. So not everybody had the opportunity to get the purple special edition. So, but with the popularity of it and the demand, Brunswick said, we need to re-release this ball. So what they did is they wrapped it around that same Savvy Hook 2.0 Pearl cover stock with the proven Melee core and made it in just a different color into the Blood Red and released it with the same core numbers, same cover, but with dynamic core technology in there as well. So I have definitely gotten a chance to throw this ball a ton. And obviously we brought Jason on here to kind of get his input, his thoughts on it, and see what he's liking out of it and some of the uses he's seen to it for so far. So what are you saying, Jason?
So I've gotten to throw this ball probably about 2 weeks. I ended up just copying my Melee Jab SE because, like you said, I wanted to really see apples to apples. So I drilled them the same, put them the same surface, and then threw them on a pattern, a house shot, and what have not. And the main thing that stuck out to me was the Blood Red was a little bit earlier in the mid lane. I don't know if it's just the color because, like you mentioned, the numbers are the same. So I would say the color to me is definitely making that ball seem stronger in the mids or just earlier overall. Now, that's not saying that you can't just add a little bit of surface to the SE and kind of get the same motion, but just apples to apples, that's what I'm seeing overall. But like the purple one, it still lets me go left, and wheels around the corner, even though it digs in a little bit sooner. So it may not be something I use like on the super fresh if I'm chasing it, in early. But, after probably 2 or 3 games, once the track starts to open, that ball's definitely got enough motor in it to get the job done for sure.
Right. Opening up that front angle.
Opening up the front angle
a little bit and using that retention. And I think I couldn't agree more on your assessment when we're comparing the purple and the Blood Red. I'm very similar to you where I saw this ball is a little earlier for me. Actually felt like it was a hair more through the pins when compared to the purple, but very, very close. And I think that really does come down to the color of the color stock, which we've seen over the years with the releases from multiple brands where the color of the bowling ball, dictates little differences in the overall shape. And, that's a big factor, Jason, as you know, when they're going through and they're testing and they're developing bowling balls, that the color is a portion of it because certain additives and certain pearl colors and stuff react differently to the frictional properties of a bowling ball. And what that equals on the lane is that we see a slightly different motion out of these balls. But if I'm putting it side by side with the purple or the red one, they're close enough that I'm not making any substantial changes to the cover.
Yeah, I mean, I'm liking it to where it would be kind of like a 1-2 punch. I would say the uppercut's probably a little bit stronger than both of them, but not by a whole lot more. But with a little bit of surface prep, I mean, those balls can be really good, strong, medium, symmetrical, pieces.
And they are. And I mean, when you look at the you mentioned the uppercut, I mean, that is the I think that's a Savvy 3.0 on that one. So slightly
Okay.
different cover stock on that. So, definitely a different shape. For me, the uppercut was a lot through the pins, but the uppercut for me is actually a hair earlier. So
Mm-hmm.
again, it depends, on the player's style, the ball roll and stuff, how these bowling balls read the lane. And that's why it's so important when we talk about, the tech side of it. It really comes down to the player and the different styles and how that bowling ball is actually going to see the lane for them. Um, Last week we did a long segment on the Ebonite Arrow, and we were fortunate enough to have about 9 or 10 different players here throwing it on
Oh my.
Thursday. And I mean, we threw it from a gambit of angles, both sides of the lanes. Even Wadka was striking, man. The slow hook even looked good on the wood here, Sterner. So I mean,
Oh
you have to go
wow.
back and watch that one. Once you get
Okay.
into the 70s, like Wadka is, age wise, the ball speed gets down there a little bit, but we like to roast him a little bit, and he'll give it back tenfold. So
Oh yeah.
we appreciated having him here for that. But I know, going back 2 weeks, Jason, we crossed side by side at the regional in Towson, and I believe both of us saw the blood red. I think we both had it in action a little bit. I had it late in the block. I think you might have thrown it a little bit, even actually at that point, maybe even a little more up the lane. It was kind of a tricky pattern.
Yeah, I mean, in those regionals, it seems like we bowled on like the mediums, and as of late, I've been using a lot of more urethane when we see those patterns. But with this new ball, I've been trying to figure out how to use other tools in the bag. So
Hmm.
I was working, and I think it was close that week. Like you said, it probably was better off for the end of the block. But I think if I would have used enough surface, I could have trapped it, kind of just up the lane. They were a little. I felt like they were cliff for me or wet dry, and I can't really. It was just that ball seemed to let me blend them out,
Hmm.
and I could get all over it, and it never really overreacted to the friction. When I found it, but
Yeah,
and
it,
like you
it
said,
was.
that's why I ended up keeping the angles a lot more shut down and just trying to use the oil to my left because I didn't feel like I could throw it away from me and consistently see the friction on the right way. Just for that center.
Yes, that center was brutal, pair to pair, side to side. Depending on what side of the building you were on. But
Yeah,
an interesting thing that you just said there is something we talk about a lot, which you just said. You use the hold, and I mean, it's one thing. Like when I'm here at the training center and I'm working with clients and stuff, I preach so often about playing the hold and not the hook,
yeah.
because the hook isn't always there, especially when you're moving in a block pair to pair. So finding that hold and using that, the shim, keeping it to your left,
Oh
that's a
yeah.
huge part of the game for sure.
Yeah,
But
keeps you in the pocket, keeps your misses. Even when you miss, like your marginal misses, is usually result in something you can make. So it's
yeah,
oh,
absolutely. So we had a good question I came across while we're talking about it. You kind of said you use kind of one of your benchmark, balls or layouts. So Brandon Hinder had asked, Flash, what pin to PAP distance do you normally use?
like I've been using a lot of stronger layouts, and I think it's because of tour. There's a little bit more oil in the front. I feel as opposed to home, because I always would feel home at hook, or I would always feel hook at home. And I think it was just more mid lane traction. And then when we got on tour, just a lot more oil up front. And so I ended up starting to use a lot of strong, like 4.5, 4.25. And then I felt, I mean, that was fine. It would give me the pocket, but then I felt like my ball was, kind of spent and deflecting a little too much. So I
Right.
couldn't quite find the blend, but I've stretched it now to like 5. I did something to where I wanted to do a 5-inch pin, a 4.5, and like a 4, kind of like wedges, and just hit them all the same or throw them all the same, and really kind of see what just the natural characteristics of the layout do to the ball before I even put surface on it and talk about throwing it slower or changing my rev rate or all
Hmm.
those things. So and that's kind of a lot of the stuff I've done over the COVID break is, really dipping into the tools and trying to, refine them and make them a little bit better. But it looks like 5 is kind of like my sweet spot now. And I'm trying to see how much earlier, those stronger pins roll. I mean, I know what the 2-inch pin does, and I don't really I don't use those a whole lot for me because I can't predict them. I don't know.
Hmm.
I tend to fall for the urethane, the old cram and jam. But Yeah, I
You and
mean,
me both, my friend.
yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm playing the hold and I'm throwing it at the head pin. If I'm bowling good, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, and there's definitely nothing wrong with that. And I mean, that was a really good assessment of kind of talking about it. We use a lot of examples between bowling and golf. So using that example to go through and say, it's kind of like different loft wedges is what you're doing, by changing the flare of your bowling ball. I mean, going from 5 to 4.5 to 4.25. It's essentially the same thing. It's almost like changing the loft. I mean, it's one of them's reading the front harder, the other one a little less, and another one that's a little smoother. And
Yeah.
the good point, as we talk to a lot of the pro staff here is a couple of the other ones had mentioned too that they have a totally different set of bowling balls at home when they're bowling on league or tournaments in the hometowns versus maybe the regional and or the national level, where the oil patterns are completely different. The way bowling balls are going through the lane is completely different. So it does dictate different shapes or different pin to pap distances to kind of attack the different type of environment you're in. I mean, bowling on tour is way different than bowling, last night's Monday Night League where I had, 2.5, 3 pitchers of beer, and threw it at the 6 pin all night. It's a little different.
Right.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the caliber of players you play with, their rev rates, how they're playing the lanes, what they're doing properly or improperly. I mean, it really, change, like it makes you have to come with a whole new strategy sometimes. You just can't stick to the same game plan. So.
Right. And it's, the one thing you talked about, over the break and when you could and when applicable, obviously, I believe you're up in the New York area now. So we all know that, New York was one of the last ones to open up their bowling center. So obviously that had to be pretty challenging, not getting the reps in from an individual like yourself, who is obviously a very huge practice guy. The regiment, for players, I've used you as an example before when I'm talking to some youth players. If you want to get to the level of competing, out at the national tour, you got to put the work in. And you may not be the best player in the field sometimes, but if you put the work in, you're definitely going to give yourself a shot. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that.
100%.
Yeah, and it's I'll be honest with you. I watch the regiments. I mean, and it's not just putting the session on the lanes. I know you're a pretty big fitness person at this point. I don't think you have much of a choice.
No. But for what, honestly, it probably couldn't have come at a better time for my career. Not getting any younger, and not really doing the best for my overall health and for my performance. It was definitely time for a change. So Heather assisted me very nicely in changing the course of the path I was on, and I'm glad she did, because just last night, for example, with the team stuff, having to take those 4 to 5 minute breaks in between shots, like, it's real easy to get tight. I mean, the adrenaline's going, everything's hyped up, and it's hard to stay focused. I mean, muscles get tight, and it was the first time I can say that I felt like I was ready to throw at every shot. I didn't feel like, okay, like, make sure I'm loose, do some stretches, like, and I don't think that comes without putting in the work, doing the right things, and preparing yourself, for those moments. So, and that,
and
so
it's,
God
I
bless
mean,
it.
yeah, being prepared like that. And, I think sometimes, we don't, some people don't think about our sport as a sport of athletes, but, when you're competing at the highest level and you're bowling, you're traveling, you're on lack of sleep, you're eating when you can, long formats and stuff. I mean, it is very trying on your body physically, mentally. So, that preparedness, when it comes to physical health, is huge. And I think even more so now than ever, because let's be honest with you, Jason, you kind of said you ain't getting any younger. I'm not either.
Yes, sir.
Let's be honest, man. These kids that are coming up now, the tricks that they have in the bag, the athleticism of some of these guys, we're playing catch up at times, and they're kind of paving the way to how the game is kind of evolving. And when you can utilize your body, mainly your legs and your core, you
Mm-hmm.
open your eyes very quickly to understand how imperative that is to the bowling swing. And, the getting away from the traditionalist of thinking it's, upper body and being square and don't drop your shoulder. Like everything we were taught as kids is outdated.
Right.
It's, it's evolution. We either adapt, which obviously you're doing yourself, or,
Trying. Trying.
we could also get run over. And, I don't think either one of us are done yet. I think, being at 3 titles, you're still ahead of me. So I'm I'm just still trying to grind out those regional checks and try to snatch me up one down there. But I'm
Absolutely.
right there with you though too, my friend. I mean, with through a ton of injuries and stuff, and really trying to keep the physical health where it needs to be. It's
Yeah.
for everybody that's watching now. It's great we're here talking about bowling balls, and we talk about ball. In general, no bowling ball on the planet is going to be the perfect ball for you if you don't do the other things you need to do in this game. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what tool is there.
It's hard to bowl through injuries and make the same quality shots that you would be making if you weren't injured. And I mean, that's just the facts. And, we will all try to bowl through injuries, but, a lot of times we end up making them worse before we make them better.
And I did. I mean, I was there, through all the knee surgeries and the back and everything else that was going on. And, being at where we're at now, I'm finally healthy. It's fun to be back out there. So, if you are hurting anybody out there in the field, take your time coming back, as much as you want to bowl, let the body heal. It's that important. But another good question that came through, Jason, what is your favorite ball? I don't know if that's right this second or if it's of all
Yeah,
time,
my buddy.
either or.
Yeah, that's my buddy Philip back home. I think
Okay.
he's meaning all the time, and I would have to say, and he should know, it's the Main Street Brawler, because I mean, it's hard to forget the 299 with the Super Wrap 10.
Yeah.
So that right there, that ball is so sentimental to me. Like, I think I still have 4 blanks, and I haven't drawn one in probably 3 or 4 years, but the thought still crosses my mind all the time.
Yeah. That was a really heavy rolling mid lane piece. That was a
Right.
good one.
You know what I mean?
One
Like,
definitely.
I think at that time, like, I was a little bit independent and I was throwing high roads, and I just went back to Brunswick. And that thing, to me, I felt like it kept up with it. Like, anywhere they were playing, I feel like I was with one of those, whether it was a 5.5-inch pin or a 5-inch pin, and like I could get over there and chase it with them. I mean, that was just one of those balls. Maybe it just suited my characteristics, and the environment at the time, but it matched up very well for the way I like to see the lane.
So I mean, you did you dated yourself a little bit there. So a brawler, that was kind of. So how many years ago is that? So you've been with Brunswick.
13.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, there was a 3-year gap where I did like an independent thing and tried everything and was going to do it my own way. And but other than that, it's ever since I've been out on tour and bowling for the PBA, I've been with Brunswick. So
yeah, almost, I think it's 07, right?
Yeah, 07. Yeah. And even then I was like on amateur deals, with them up in like 02, 03, 04. Mm-hmm. So long time, man, like probably 15 years now, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome though. I mean, it's you see a lot of that in our brands here with the brands of Brunswick and just the the legacy brands and guys like Parker and Johnny and and Walter and just seeing the long list of individuals that have been with the company forever. So it's we always get the question when we're on here. I mean, obviously now, Jason, you have 7 brands at your fingertips that you can throw to, and it throws a whole bunch of more variables in there, but it also gives you a whole bunch more options as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they asked you, what was your favorite ball? I mean, out of the other brands or anything else that you've drilled, what else are you really liking in the bag right now?
Well, not being able to throw them in competition, just practicing. Like, I like the Redemption Pearl. I did actually just drill an arrow for, just for the team event. So I threw a little bit in practice. I trying to figure out where it falls. It seems pretty strong for being, like, from what I understand, is a somewhat of a clean ball. Like, and then like you were saying, like Walker get in there and slow hook it. So like it looked like a big ball, but I felt like it got down the lane, like, like your cleaner ASIMs, but still hooks like a slower, bigger ASIM.
Yeah, so. It's a pretty good description. So I don't know if you had a chance to throw the Omni, but to me, the best way to describe it was like the Omni was super clean, a little lazier, but then they kind of inverted that core on that arrow. modified it a little bit, and that thing gave it the the projection just to get that mass in a different area of that ball. So again, same thing for me. It's that cleanness. And when I get into them big ASIMs, I need that cleanness. Otherwise, my ball sees the front too darn much. I think I just swore in a live feed. That's cool. I'm not even drinking, and I swore.
That's all right. I'm amazed I haven't done it yet.
Yeah, it's all right. This is a judge-free zone here. We do
Perfect.
these things for for fun, and usually like on a Monday or a Wednesday I might have a beer in front of me or something. So I just happen to still be at the shop, and I think my customers would probably cringe a little bit if I was drinking when I'm on the press. So
that's how my teammates feel. They're like, "You're not drinking Hennessy this week." I'm like, "No Hennessy this week. We'll wait till we're done, and then we'll be fine. We can go about our business."
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. A couple other ones on here, and get some pretty good questions coming through here. So they were kind of asking, what kind of mental exercises have you added to your physical game to stay focused, especially when you aren't bowling well? It's kind of a loaded question.
Yeah. So the mental side, I actually in this COVID break, me and Heather, she convinced me to look into the old mental book stuff. So I actually read a book or two on that. I have my opinions on it, but everyone's different. I think how they tick. But I think for me recently, it's been more of the bowl use stuff and sticking to their procedures. And I don't know how much I can really say because it's not mine to give. But it's kind of like it's given me an order of operations. So when I throw a shot, I can assess it that way, and that helps because I think before when I was unclear what was going on the lane. Like then mentally I would just try to be like, okay, now I can physically take over and make this ball work. And as well as I do that can only work so many times. Like you have to understand what tools you're using in order to strike, because if not, you're just hitting the pocket, but you're not really going anywhere. And if not, you're kind of spinning your wheels. And then that's where it kind of takes a toll on your mental. And then you press, and then you get in a bad spot, and then it's hard to bite off once you got all the negative animals.
As soon as you press, the thought process goes right out the window. I mean, the mental game is then gone at that point, and it's next thing you look up and you wasted 2 or 3 more shots, and you both know that you cannot do that in competition.
No,
you have to have a short-term memory in this game, no matter what kind of game you're bowling, to just kind of brush it off. I think I told you, I was texting you earlier, jokingly said, I 9-pinned 6 times in league last night. If I fly out over that.
Tilt.
I mean, what do you even do? Of course,
I'll be kicking my head.
I could have kicked a puppy or something. I don't know. It's not. I mean, what do you do? I mean, you can either sit there and dwell on it, or just you can come back from the mental side of it and go, you know what? I can't possibly throw it any better than that.
Yeah, dude, you just got to make it and move on. Like, and like you said, a lot of people keep dwelling on it, and they'll keep making marginal shot after marginal shot because they're frustrated, and then eventually they're going to miss a 10-pin. And then that's when, all hell breaks loose. It's no good after that.
And you lost 11 pins.
And then you're lost.
Yep, 9 out. The worst.
The mental part is so hard. It's not like you can you get it. I feel like for me, I acquired it in bowling as many tournaments as I could. I always pressed myself to bowl the tournaments where I knew I wasn't the best bowler. And that's how I, basically figured out how to sharpen up the tools. But I mean, everyone's different. Some people can read books. Some people just have it up there. They have a process for them that works. Whether it, they just see it black or white. And the people that live in the gray, I feel, are the ones that they're always looking for something, and usually it's right in front of them. And just a lot of times they can't get out of their own way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you were to pick like an individual on tour that you think has like just an amazing mental fortitude or a mental game, who would that person be?
Norm Duke, 100%. I mean, I just, you watch him, and it looks like when things are spinning out of control, he can find a way to step back, take a deep breath, dig in, fill the frame out, whether he's, makes a split, to save 180, or if he punches to shoot 190 or 2-0. It's just, he finds a way to, finish the game positive, so he's ready for the next game. It's so nuts to me how he does it, and then he just keeps moving. And then you'll have others that they won't finish that game, and then they might as well check out because the next 3 games they're bowling so bitter that they can't, you know, they just can't get out of their own way. It's just, how many 10 pins I left that game or whatever, you know, whatever they did that game prior. But
yeah, because we can go back and change that, right?
Oh yeah, you can't do that then. It's like, let it go, man. Like, you're human. It's gonna happen. Like, you're gonna miss spares. Like, don't let it cost you another 30 or 40 pins. You know, save yourself.
Yeah, good result. I like that. I would see that in Norm as well. And you know, obviously that guy is about as versatile as they come. He can do anything no ball. It's unbelievable. Yeah. And even at, you know, I'm not picking on Norm's age, but I mean, Norm has been doing this for an extremely long time. And to be able to compete at the level he's still competing at is a testament to how good that man is.
He's mentally tough, and he did a lot. I talked to him. I did not realize, but he did a lot of physical work too. You know, he's I don't know if he's branded that way, you know, like Amuleto, a big fitness guy, but Norm's pretty cut. Like, he works out pretty religiously, you know, takes care of himself. And I mean, like you said, I mean, he's still sharp mentally, one of the best in the world, and that's why he's still winning at, you know, at 52 or whatever you said.
Yeah, I don't even know what is Norm. Norm's
he might be a little older than that. Maybe 55. I know he's been on the senior tour for a couple of years. I don't think it's been that long.
He's probably about, I mean, I think Parker's up to like 57 now, and it doesn't seem like he's been on the Racing Tour that long. But I mean, I'm going to be creeping up on that, and I got a few years to go yet. But about another 7 years till I hit the Racing Tour, and all you got to look forward to is pulling the guys to beat my head in all these other years. So I mean, what does it really matter at this point?
No, see, that's you got the time now to be ready for it, though. You know, you can make those changes.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe it goes into that, you know, Carrie actually popped in here and asked a question, you know, maybe it's the same answer being Norm, but she asked, you know, who did you look up to as a bowler when you were a youngster? You know, did you have that one person that you kind of emulated, or was the what really got you into the sport?
I mean, I watched so many of them. Honestly, Tommy was one. Norm, Amuleto. I'm trying to think. I mean, it seemed like Robert Smith. Even though my rev rate was never going to be that high. I mean, anyone that you know, it just made you want to be better. Those were the guys that I looked up. When usually those are the ones winning, obviously on Sunday. But yeah, I would say those are some of my, you know, top four that I looked up to. You know, trying to, especially Amuleto, obviously, you know, the physical side of it, you know, and just I think he won 18 or 19 times. I don't know, but that guy, you know, it seemed like there was nothing he couldn't do to the bowling ball. So
unbelievable. I remember the first time meeting him up in Mechanicsburg, PA, you know, which is about 35 minutes from me, and met Amuleto, and I think Pedersen made the telecast that day too. That was like a dream come true. And then I remember vividly, like the pro-am. It was like I bowled with Amuleto at the time, Kelly Kaufman and Brian Goebel. So I got to see the fallback firsthand as well. From the Brian Goebel fallback is something you can never forget. That guy was amazing. But good question coming through from a practice ethic too, because you know this is what your forte is here. So what's the best practice advice you can give to somebody?
So when the whole practice thing, I think, you know, obviously I wanted to be physically better. So I started doing the YouTube thing. You know, to your, you know, the comments you made earlier about the youth is, I feel like now with the ability that there's so many more tools out there that they can learn from. Like, you don't have to keep bowling tournaments to figure out how to turn, like increase your tilt or rotation and stuff like that. Like you just go to YouTube and browse and, you know, just practice it. So for me, for practice, so that's how it started out for me when I started practicing. So I was spending 4 to 5 hours, sometimes probably way too long, but there were certain things that I wanted to do physically to get better, or that I thought I needed to change to get better. So that's what my regiment was. But to me, I think now looking on it, it's more about quality than it is quantity. So I don't ever practice with score, because I feel like if I'm bowling good on any pattern and my shots are there, like I'm going to be hitting the pocket, my scores are going to reflect that as long as I'm making spares. So I would say when you're practicing, it's really about go in there, kind of like I do the driving range, and one ball at a time, and learn what each ball does individually. So you're not just going into, I'm trying to strike mode. I mean, sure, when you're practicing, you're trying to strike, but, you know, try to strike with all your stuff, and try to play places where, I mean, granted, sometimes a house shot, you can only do so much, but, you know, just try to do something that's not normal for you, so that you can not feel uncomfortable when you're in a situation like game 7 or 8, and you're up against the ball return. You're like, oh man, like, here we go again. I don't want to get over here. Like, practice in front of the ball return, put some time in it so that when you get to that moment, you're not like dreading it. It's like, you're like, okay, like last time I screwed up, this time I'm going to try this, and we're going to see. And like, that's how you really learn and develop confidence, in those areas that you didn't really, you weren't successful in before. So that's my biggest practice advice is, don't practice for score.
Right. And if you're going to have failures in practice.
Absolutely.
Because when you fail in practice, you now have the immediate ability to go back and try something different and learn from that failure. I mean, any player that, whether it's you, Jason, or any other player that we've talked to, we have lost and failed more than we have excelled. And that's how we end up learning. I mean, again, it's another golf reference, but if you talk to Tiger Woods, as many titles as that man has, he has more losses. Right? And no matter how many championships somebody wins in the NBA or in another sport, they have lost more than they've won in their career. And when you learn, and it sounds hard sometimes when you're talking about it is, but when you really learn how to lose is when you start to learn how to win. Because when you learn how to lose and you take the takeaway out of what you didn't excel on and what you can work on for the next time is to eliminate that one additional loss that now you don't have because it turned into a win.
Yeah.
So, when you watch Flash practice or somebody else practice, maybe you only get to see one clip of what he's doing there, but you have to understand that he may have went through 7, 8, 9, 10 bowling balls, throwing that same line, watching where it's shaped at and learning his bowling bag. We talk all the time about looking at lanes front to back and understanding our equipment. And, the more you learn about your tools before you go and use them in a tournament, you're going to have X, Y, and Z more success because your decisions at that point are going to be more educated based on what you've already learned and what you know about your equipment. So it's twofold. You got that physical aspect, repeating shots, which is why you're there. And then the other thing is utilizing the tools and what, Jason and I are on here right now talking about, not technically right now, talking about a melee blood red, but we were. But we get into these bowling things, but the point to that is that learning where this particular ball or the balls in our brands fall in. And we're here talking about these because we have a company that does such a great job, releasing these bowling balls and making these arsenals, and it's our job to learn them, right? Yeah. We wouldn't be here talking if we weren't behind that. Not that Jason and I don't get along, but it's technology and them coming out with these things. And if we were in our younger years, we wouldn't have this streaming thing here where he's on a camera and I'm 3-4 states away and talking to you today about these things. So it's pretty amazing.
Absolutely, man.
But all right, just scrolling down here, make sure I didn't miss any other huge questions here, Jason. Believe it or not, it's very easy to get talking, long periods of time here. We're already at like almost 30 minutes.
Yeah, I just looked up at the clock. I was like, I didn't even think we've been talking for 30 minutes.
No, it happens all the time. So any other questions out there for Jason? We'd be happy to answer for you here while we're kind of getting towards the tail end of the broadcast here. But as we'll see if anything comes through. But Jason, I know.
What I do? Oh, there we go.
You're good. I can still hear you.
Sorry, I thought I didn't exit out.
There's that darn technology again.
Yeah.
But I know, right now, not 100% sure of all the events you're hitting in the near future here. I know you said you're going to try if some regionals pop up, but. Outside of regionals, where might we see you again next, or where should we be watching for?
Well, I'm hoping they go back. I'm hoping they go back to doing like all those tournaments up in the Northeast. Like last year, it seemed like at Ithaca, and like every other month there was one for $3 or $4 grand. There was Livingston. I'm assuming if you're going to see me, it's going to be on amateur stuff, unless they have some more regionals available coming up towards the end of the year. We got a vacation trip coming up at the end of October, but other than that, I mean, if there's bowling available, I'm probably going to try to do it. But I haven't looked too much at the schedule ahead of the league. So, but we're still going to be practicing and being ready for whatever 2021 has to provide if we get there.
Absolutely. It's you know, I'm pretty sure everybody on here can back my words up on that. But it's, you know, we love watching you practice. We love watching you compete when you're out there as well. You know, we were right there feeling the pain last night. You guys definitely bowled well. Definitely, you know, we were pulling for the hitman there. If I didn't pull for the hitman, Dave would kick me because, you know, he still says, you know, I think he was on that team for like 35 seconds, and that's like his team.
Yeah, he was
So
on the first
yeah,
year.
yeah, you can make sure you can tell him I was roasting him on the feed. He'll
Oh
appreciate
yeah,
that, you know, when you
yeah,
run
that's where
into
we're
him.
going.
But
I'm
yeah,
going down
that's
there to meet them after this.
yeah,
So
that's fine. But looks like we got one other question here, Jason.
sure,
We'll
sure.
answer this last one here, and then we'll get close to wrapping up. But Chris Wilson had asked, you know, because we're talking a lot about mindset. You know, what's the
Mhm.
best advice you can give a player that used to feel they could compete on a really high level and maybe getting that mindset back to where it needs to be?
Kind of like, yeah, time away. It's tough because I feel like for the competitors in us, we need to be competitive and be out there to, be sharpening the tools all the time. And when you step away from it, sometimes you lose a little bit of that. I think once you get back into it, you're going to snap back into the same process that you were before. Um, at least in my experience, that's what's kind of happened to me. I mean, I've had breaks here or there, or took some time off, and I feel like mentally or physically I wasn't there, and I would just have to, get back to work and then go back out there and slowly chip away at it again, and it would just take, like you said, a couple wins, to get the confidence back, and then the next thing you know, you just you got to start to believe it again. Like how to do this,
Mm-hmm.
and I think once you believe it in yourself again, you're going to go right back to where you were, um, hopefully. So
Yeah, you know, it's kind of like another way. It's kind of like, you know, riding a bike, right? We
yeah,
remember
I
how to
mean.
do it. We may not pedal as fast as what we used to, or we may have to change the way we pedal it. But you didn't forget, right? You didn't
Yeah.
forget. You just need to find that path and that way to what works for you. So you know, every individual is different. You know, Chris is the one that asked the question here. I know Chris is from my area here, and
Mhm.
you know, Chris went through, you know, some health stuff, and you know, we kind of talked about some of this, and but he's not giving himself enough credit. I mean, I know it was league last week, but I believe he posted 760 the one night, 770 the next. I mean, you're not that's not complete struggle bus there. And then he
No,
won a
no.
tournament. He won a Baker tournament like 2 days ago. So um,
Well,
he's won more recently than I have, and he's asking the question. But it's
yeah, it's crazy because we put these high expectations on ourselves, and when we don't get there, even like you say, both 760, like that's huge. I mean, that's not like you missed a whole lot,
mm-hmm.
but sometimes like it just doesn't live up to where you think, shot making was, and then you start to doubt yourself. Like, even though you bowled good, it's crazy. You don't take the positive away from the night. You still find a way to look at the negative. So if anything, like you said, you got to find a way to start looking at the little positives. Even though maybe you didn't execute that night, you missed two spares, you shot 760. Dang, that's not bad,
Yeah,
So,
I'll take it. You know, I had 690 last night. I threw it good. I can get nothing out of that. You
yeah,
know,
yeah. I mean, sometimes you got to have short term memory. Block out the right stuff.
yeah. Give you another example, Chris. I mean, like I said, you know, we were talking earlier. You know, Jason and I crossed beside each other in Towson, and I know Jason caught a check in there, and you know, for
Barely.
myself, I finished like middle of the pack, and you know, my takeaway from there was I don't really feel like I bowled bad, but
Mm.
I think I had two mismakeables the entire time, but I just couldn't not split when, you know, maximum penalty. I mean,
Yeah,
you know, you're going to have events like that. And, you know, you bowled 760, 770 recently here. And, you know, maybe you'll go out and bowl 610 the next time you go out. But think about what you did right in that 660 or 670 and harness that and remember the
yeah,
really good shots and build off of that. I mean, it's no different for anybody that's, you know, asking that. You know, go back and if you feel like something's off and you want to get a session in on the lanes, just remember to kind of go back to the basics, go through in your head during your practice session,
yeah.
and get yourself right. Right. And
I
always
would
an
say,
extra set of eyes helps. No, you're
I,
good.
I would, yeah, I would also, when you are throwing it that good, like get yourself on film, like because if anything, like sometimes, and it sounds silly, like if you have those good shots, and like say you're 6 months down the road, you're kind of like off the beaten path, starting to doubt yourself, like pull those videos up, like get some good confirmation of you throwing it good to be like, man, I was throwing it good. Like what's going on? Like let's get my act together here. You know, like get it when it's good, because then if it is bad, sometimes it is physical. It's not even mental. We're just doing something that it does not allowing us to get to we were to repeat. You know, so take videos when they're throwing it good and when you're bad, so you can see, because sometimes, I mean, it's right there. Like you said, you need that extra set of eyes, and you don't always have it. And, you know, we got it in our hand all the time.
Yeah, now.
Literally.
Man, I wish I had that when I was like 8, you know.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's so many things that the youth have now that we did not take advantage of, or we just didn't have available.
Yeah, we didn't have it. We had to put it on a VHS tape and go home and edit it. And then, like, you know, the camera was the size of, you know, my drill press, you know, trying to get it into the center. And the quality wasn't very good. But, yeah, take advantage of those. And that's, you know, really good insight on that, you know, as well. I couldn't agree more, Jason. And, you know, it goes along with the thing, too. Like, you know, for me and for everybody else here at my training center, you know, we're pretty adamant about, you know, before you leave for the night during a practice session, the last shot that you throw, you got to go out on a good shot. You know, we don't ever leave on a poor shot. You know, we want to, you know, from a mental standpoint, you know, put the image in your head. I threw that one great. That's how I'm leaving here today.
Yeah.
That way I know I ended a session the way I want to start my next one. So
absolutely.
It's definitely the mental part of it, the physical part of it. And, you know, you just gotta pull it all together. But anyway, Jason, we're at 42 minutes. And I'm sure you're, like I told you, man, it's so easy. Like, I think, you know, a couple weeks ago, Shannon was on and Carrie was on at the same time, and we were all chatting. We're all pretty close. And next thing you know, we looked up and we're like an hour and 10 in. We're like, oh my God, did anybody watch this whole thing? Because we're just talking. But I'll tell you what, you know, everybody's like, oh yeah, we watched it from start to finish. But it's so great, easy to talk bowling, and it's when we get to have, you know, guests like yourself and others on that are really passionate about, you know, what they do, and matches what, you know, the passion of everybody else. You know, it's really easy to just, you know, talk about something that we just love to do. So it's you know, it makes it really easy.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, but you know, I want to thank you personally. You know, as soon as I approached Jason, when I ran into him, I was like, "Hey, man, you know, can you come on, do a segment here?" Right away was absolutely. So, you know, we appreciate you, you know, being one of the, you know, ambassadors to the Brunswick brands, and you know, a great player on the lanes, and you know, a friend off the lanes as well. And you know, we wish you absolutely nothing but the best. You know, we are all sitting here waiting to see title number 4. We know it's not too far on the horizon here. They just got to give us some tournaments to bowl, and it'll definitely come up here soon. But the one thing we like to do before we go off here, Jason, is, you know, even beyond, you know, saying, you know, buy the brands of Brunswick, we always tell our individuals here, you know, go out and support your local bowling centers now. These proprietors need you more now than ever. We want this sport to continue to grow. So make sure you're supporting those proprietors that were, you know, shut down because of COVID for months here. Get in there, bowl some extra practice games. We talked a lot about that. I think sometimes tournament players or just guys bowling league and gals, you know, don't put enough into the practice regimen. I'm sure those proprietors would love to see you right now. Coming in and filling up their lanes in there. But again, I enjoyed the time, Jason. Thank you much again for joining us here, and I'd love to have you back on in the future.
Yes, sir, Jeff. Yeah, anytime, man. I really do appreciate it. I love the talk. So, you know, anytime you want to hit me up, just don't hesitate.
Sounds awesome, my friend. Thank you very much, and be safe, and go have one for me.
I will let the boys know for sure.
All right, my man. Take care.
All right, have a good one.
Bye,
See ya. Bye.